Good afternoon to you, our dear esteemed viewers. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Community Show. My name is Douglas Onen, and tonight we are discussing PLE results and the reform in the education system. I'll be joined by Ms. Akankunda Allen, Mr. Aruho Paul, and Mr. Barnett Eric Kitsa, who will help us unpack tonight's conversation. Otherwise, I'll just quickly give my panelists a few seconds to go ahead and say hello and introduce themselves, and then we can begin the conversation. I'll begin with the lady, Miss Akankunda Allen. Miss Akankunda Allen, kindly unmute, turn on your video, and say hello, good afternoon to our viewers, and we can begin the conversation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Akankunda Allen, student at Akankunda University, pursuing bachelor's arts with education. I'm in my third year, specializing in literature English. I'm a team lead of Empower Youth Uganda and a proud member of Girls and Mentorship Spain. I'm so happy that I'm joining the panelists today to discuss issues of national importance. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Allen. We're very happy to have you join us today to discuss this very crucial conversation. Let's just quickly have Mr. Aruho Paul to go ahead and say hello and introduce himself. Sir, you're most welcome.
My name is PaulAruho. I'm a teacher by profession. I handled the literature and the English, and then later I joined journalism. I did a Bachelor of Science in journalism, and then I have a master's in journalism and media studies from University from UCU. Currently, I work with Uganda Technical College, Bushenyi, as a lecturer of communication skills. And I have an experience of being a chairman, school management committee of a primary school. So I'm coming with that background. I thank you, and I thank you all our listeners. I pray that we have an interactive time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Aruho, I'll just quickly begin with you. You have a very robust and very strong experience in this field, but also you're the right man to help us start the conversation. So I hope it is prudent enough if I begin the conversation with you. So a few weeks ago, the Uganda National Examination Board, UNED, went ahead and released the performance or the results of our brothers and sisters who sat for that primary 7 examination in the year 2023. As such, I would just like us to quickly begin the conversation with looking at the performance analysis. From where you sit, you are quite experienced and informed on how to on respect with respect to primary education, but also be it that you're a lecturer, you're a teacher, you have this information at your disposal. So my question is going to be twofold. One will focus on the performance analysis, and the other will look at the relevance of PLE. So the first question is, how did the pupils perform in the 2023 primary examinations? And what trends or patterns can be identified in the results? But then two, looking at the relevance, what is the perceived importance and relevance of PLE in assessing pupils' readiness for higher education or other pathways? Mr. Aruho, most welcome.
Thank you very much, Owen. It is nice once again to have you here and to have me as well. I think apart from the little difference from the numbers from the previous candidates that sat for PLE in 2022, I think there was a slight lower number of students or pupils that sat. And I would like to say that we have seen some improvement in the scores. Only that I'm not a friend to scores, because I know most of the times these scores don't really pick out the what our students, what these children go through, because of course, for example, the content that somebody has been studying for the last 7 years to be examined in 2 or 3 hours may not be. I have never had a good explanation whether that can be better assessment. But the performance was a bit fair. We have seen our pupils performing very well. We have seen more pupils getting better grades. But even on the other side, we have seen people who have failed. Having 88,269 pupils being ungraded and who cannot join the second level is something that we really need to come up and have a very good discussion about it. We need to know where these kids are going. We need to know what is their fate. Are they now going to be dropouts that they cannot join another level? Are they repeating? I think there should be a deliberate effort, especially for the ministry, to go and find out what is happening to these kids. And then we also saw the ungraded, those who never turned up for exam, which was very unfortunate that a student can register, and then at the end of that day, this person cannot come to sit for exams. I think there should also be a deliberate effort to look for where these kids are, because now these are the people that will be engaged in unemployment, or if they are girls, they are getting married, and they are going to be a burden on this country, in our areas of where we come from.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aruho, for that brilliant submission as regards to the performance analysis, but also talking about, aside from the performance analysis, you're also looking at trends in regards to the primary reading examination. Let's just quickly bring in Allen. Miss Allen, the pupils sat for primary examination, and from the submissions of Mr. Aruho, two things came into mind. That one, he says that there were improvements in the primary reading examinations in the year 2023. However, his concern is these improvements on the scores doesn't necessarily translate to the quality of the pupils that we later on get in the years to come. So my question then to you will fall in lines of challenges in the education system. So I would like you to kindly help us unpack the challenges that exist in the current education system in Uganda, but also how does those challenges impact pupils' academic outcome? Alan, over to you.
Thank you so much, Drake, for that question. Yeah, the Ugandan education system has got a diversity of challenges that affect the students' performance or academic outcomes. The first challenge I want to highlight is inadequate infrastructure. These students or pupils who, like Mr. Aruho has pointed out, that however much some students have improved or the general performance has improved, but there are districts that still lag behind, and you find like districts like Kubukwe, Chibuku being the last in the performance and having the worst, the students that have performed worst. It's still a challenge that these schools, most of the schools in remote areas, lack textbooks, the resources, they lack classrooms, and you find the teacher-student ratio is not tallying. A teacher is having a lot of load, and the follow-up, whether these learners are being taught, is not taken as a crucial action by the stakeholders. Then the poor content. Most of these primary schools, trust me, they just hire these senior 4 dropouts, a person who dropped out in senior 2 to come and teach the pupils. And this This is because the country is still lacking the qualified teachers, trained teachers to deliver content, the quality content to learners. And even the teachers that are trained, the content that they are having is most of the times outdated. They do not have the trends that are aligning with the UNEB requirements. And you find these learners are being taught content of 1900, and yet UNEB has other trends that it needs, or the requirements that are needed for a pupil to pass. And then this another challenge is poverty and the low socio-economic status of the families that these pupils come from. We still have a challenge that the households in most of the remote areas cannot afford to support their pupils to go to school, cannot support their pupils with the basic needs that they need to perform well. You find this in these districts, most of the times students have or pupils have to travel long distances in search for these schools. And if, of course, if a pupil, a P7 pupil goes to school and has to travel kilometers before he reaches class, and maybe he's tired or they don't get motivation. So this probably leads to the decline in the academic outcomes. Another challenge I want to put out is the gender disparities. We've seen that, like, out of the 1,602 pupils that were registered under UPE, we are having a very large ratio of females being registered than the males. What does this bring to us? That initially we had the females being the ones that are limited to education. But of recent, in the years, the NGOs have come up, they are talking about gender equality, girl child education, and now the boy child has been neglected. Most of these boys are going to become responsible men in future, and I don't know how we are going to do it if we've neglected the role of a boy child, and we see the numbers of enrollment of males in schools is declining each and every day. That's also a challenge, that most of them who registered didn't even sit for exams. Yeah, even after, I think I've talked about the teacher shortages. Schools lack teachers, and the teachers who are there are not motivated, they are not paid their salaries in time. So a person is not motivated to deliver what they should deliver. Yeah, then the impact of these challenges, of course, if these challenges are there, the outcomes are not good. Students, if the students don't have enough room for concentration, conducive environment, they must fail. And of course, we expect poor performance. Then unequal access to education. We see boys enrollment in schools is declining, so we expect that we are going to be having an equal access to education in terms of gender. Then the retention rates in schools also is still a challenge. The students that enroll for P1 and then those ones that complete P7, the ratio is not tallying. So yeah, these challenges need to be addressed by all stakeholders, the parents, teachers, the administrators, the Ministry of Education, so that we can get the expected outcomes in our academic endeavors. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That has been a very good discussion as regards to the challenges in the education system. And I'd like to then bring Mr. Aruho, who is an experienced teacher, lecturer, but also an educationist. Mr. Aruho, when you listen to the submissions of Ms. Akankunda Allen, she highlights numerous challenges from inadequacy in infrastructure that looks at teachers aren't motivated enough. That means low salaries or are not paid in time. We look at poor content that is taught to the pupils. poverty in families that affects the performance of students because of the psychological impact, gender disparities. Over the years, we're now seeing more females being enrolled compared to men. But I'd just like you to come and help us demystify two things. The first thing is going to be on grounds of gender disparity. A report has indicated that even with the recent graduates that we are seeing in university, after 2020, after COVID years, more females are graduating from institutions of higher learning compared to the males. That means there's a decline of males completing school compared to the females. The females are graduating more and are coming out in huge numbers as the men continue declining. So I'd like you to assess for us the challenge and grounds of gender disparity. How can we strike the balance? Because if we have more girls enrolling now in primary schools and even complete education, it has a detrimental effect to the country. So on the first ground, I would like to kindly request you to help us break the issue of gender disparity down. But then secondly, on the aspect of motivation of teachers, how can these teachers be motivated aside from just improving their salaries? What more is required? Because that will later on also help improve the content. Because teachers that go for retreats, it's important for the content that is given to the pupils. So, Mr. Aruho, as you come on, just come and respond to the issue of gender disparities, but also motivation of teachers in regards to and helping to improve the content delivered to the student. Aruho, over to you. Yes, sure. Take on, Ali.
So on how we can solve this issue of the gender disparities, as I've told you earlier that a boy child has been neglected. This is the same thing like we've been solving the issue with the girl child. The same thing should be done. Like if they are empowering a girl child, then they should also carry on empowering the boy child, putting the same opportunities like they give to a girl child, giving them incentives like they give to girl children. I think that's all. That's what we, just equality, giving what a girl child is given to a boy child, equality. I think that's what we can do to solve these gender disparities, motivating them to study, showing them what they should do, encouraging them to stay in school, like that. And then the teachers' motivation. What I can say here is that these teachers, we believe that our economy cannot facilitate paying them higher salaries. And for that, if we can agree with that, if they are to receive those low salaries that they've accepted, then the salaries come in time. There be accommodation facilities for these teachers. There be feeding. That these teachers have a conducive environment. They should not be put under harsh rules or anything. Just give them peace of mind to deliver what they should deliver. And then on the issue of content, I think the government and the Ministry of Education should invest much in these seminars and workshops for teachers, because with time, content keeps on varying from what we use to studying, and you find what is being taught now should be relevant to the current situation. So these teachers should be frequently encouraged to attend workshops, seminars, to keep updated, to keep with the trends of UNEB. What they should be told, what to teach to learners, what UNEB needs when it's marking. And I think that's all. Yeah, thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Alan. That has been a very good one in regards to gender disparity. The same thing that has been done to help elevate the girl child should also not be the same that we do for the boy child. Mr. Aruho, we had lost you there, but thanks for coming back. I'd like to ask you, Mr. Aruho, in grounds of assessment methods, as a practicing teacher who has been in the field, Are there alternative assessment methods that that UNEP should consider besides providing examinations at the end of 7 years to help improve the education system? Mr. Aruho?
The methods that can help us, get out of all this, what UNEP should do. I really agree that UNEP is doing a good job of assessing our learners, and it has been here for a very long time. However, I'm one of the people who don't get excited with grades, because as Arya said, grades cannot get out what this child has studied. I don't think it really gets out, because, for example, now take an example. If on that day when this child was doing mathematics, there was an issue, this girl was maybe fell sick, and he was brought in from the sick bay, and you are going to give this girl the same paper, and then assess, and then you come out with these results. I don't think the kind of assessment we are doing now we always bring out the results that we really need as a country. There is a new curriculum in lower secondary that is being implemented, where it deals with the competencies each child has, because children are gifted differently. So they look at these competencies, the small competencies, and they compile what we call continuous assessment. The pioneers of this curriculum are now going to senior 4. So let's wait for next year, at the end of next year, whether we will have performed better than these grades, because I don't think the grading we are having brings out the whole person, which we really need as a country, as Uganda. Although I have a background of arts, but I am in an institution that trains people who are going to become engineers. I'm in a technical college. So I am of the view that these methods we are using to assess our learners need to change. They can't be like this forever. They need to change such that we have a better way of assessing students, where we have continuous assessment, so that if a child enters a class or any level, enters a level of education, this child is assessed throughout up to the end of that level, not assessing a child in just 2 hours, in 2 days. The child has done all the 4 subjects, and you say you are assessing them. So I advocate for competence-based assessment, competence-based education, where people are examined on what they can do, not what they can cram and write on paper, but what can this child do. Continuous assessment should be encouraged in all our levels, so that we bring out and we understand what really this person can come out at the end of the day. The another thing is that we have seen some funny posts that are coming up on social media. I don't know whether these kids are assessed the same, because, for example, the training is not the same. The teaching environment is not the same. Now, for example, if you look at schools in urban centers, they are performing far better than those schools in rural areas. They are not performing because, okay, the performance is based on the assessment at the end of the level. Now, if you have a different environment, where you have, for example, some areas where they cannot access particular facilities. We have schools that are studying under the trees. We have schools that are studying in mud and water classrooms. We have seen schools that are roofed with the banana leaves. Now, if you are in such a school, when it rains, what happens? And then we have this other world where we have people studying in skyscrapers. You know, that environment, and these are the people who are going to be subjected to the same assessment. So for me, I'm of the view that assessment should be continuous, should not be on spot assessment, should not be done in just a few hours, and you say you have come up with a better mark. That's why, as I conclude, I will repeat and repeat that I'm not excited with grades, and I'm not a person who is into grades. Thank you, Onen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aruho, for those wonderful submissions. It is true that assessment should be continuous to help better the education system, which personally I do agree with you. And thanks very much for the submissions. Thank you very much, Mr. Edgar Biamamoho, for joining us in this conversation. I'll just quickly let you go ahead and introduce yourself and pick up from where Mr. Aruho has talked. Tonight we're discussing PLE results and the reform in the education system. So maybe as you come ahead and introduce yourself, Mr. Aruho, discussing the issue in regards to assessment. Yes. So, Mr. Edgar, are you there? Oh, Mr. Edgar has dropped off. Anyway, Mr. Aruho, I'd just like you to come and talk about the curriculum review. Besides what you're talking about the alternative of having continuous assessment. Aside from continuous assessment, as we're looking at improvements, how best do you think, is there an ongoing
Yes, Alan, I was saying I would like to engage you on relation to teacher training and on teacher training and professional development. So how are teachers being prepared to adapt to the changes in the education system, and what initiatives are in place for the continuous professional development, if at all there is any anyway? But also I'd like you to help us talk about parental involvement and help us talk about how can parents be more actively involved in their children's education, and what role does parental engagement play in the student success? Alan, over to you.
Thank you so much. As in, being a teacher, like any other professional, needs to be updated each and every day because content varies from year to year. So for teachers, most of the teachers in local areas or districts that are in remote areas, most of them do not access these initiatives that keep updating them or keep them updated as they are developing their profession. So some of these initiatives that are most likely accessed by the town schools, they are continuous professional development initiatives like workshops, seminars. Most of the schools that are in towns, and on a rare case, the rural schools that can access these seminars, these teachers are given basics on how to teach on the trades that UNEB needs each and every year, what has changed, what has remained, what is needed. And another initiative is the innovative approaches to professional development. This is done by some schools and districts that have developed or adopted personalized professional learning plans that keep them updated on what to do with learners. I want to appreciate the district education officers and the inspectors of schools that are actively engaging in these programs and are helping their teachers to keep updated. We appreciate you so much. And we encourage and call upon those stakeholders that have slept in their offices and they are not helping the teachers to develop their profession, to wake up and do what is supposed to be done. I also want to call upon teachers, you know, after graduating, most of the professionals, not only teachers, tend to think they are done with life and they do not need anything more. But with life, whether in teaching or in any other profession, what a person needs is to keep updated, and because life changes and the world has to change, so a person has to keep updated. So I want to call upon teachers who just sleep on their documents and think they are done with what they needed, or they've got all they needed, to wake up and start attending these seminars, workshops, reach out to schools that perform well and see what the techniques they use to reach out to what they have. Then I encourage the head teachers also to engage in these facilitations. You know, towards UNEP, there are these personnels they always bring in schools to tell students what is needed. I encourage head teachers to invest in those facilitations. They help students so much and teachers as well. And they help in achieving better academic outcomes. Yeah, so you also told me to discuss on the parental engagement or involvement in their children's education. Parent engagement in a child's education is crucial for their academic success and overall being. So research has it that parents that are actively involved in their children's education, students tend to achieve highly better attendance, good morals, and have more positive attitude towards school. Like I said, a parent is a basis or a foundation of a child's growing and career development. From home, a child should be taught how to behave. Of course, a poorly behaved child will not achieve, even if they're intelligent like her. Most of the parents tend to be busy and they leave these kids to stay with maids, of which most of the time these maids do not care in impacting morals in their children. And I call upon parents that these kids need your help, they need your guidance. On top of supporting them or providing for what they need at school, they need you to reach out to them, talk to their teachers, know what they need. Most of the parents take this as involvement, decide they taking decisions for their pupils. That's what they take as involving in the children's education, of which is not right. Parents should not decide for their children, but they give a diversity of opportunities for children to decide on their own of what they feel they are passionate at. And they should establish a supportive home environment, free from quarrels, free from child-based violence, free from any violence that can affect a child psychologically. I've talked about the morals, then communicating with the teachers. Most of the parents just take children to school and that's all. But I would request them to just follow up your children, know what they do, know who their friends are, know how they perform, know their strengths and weaknesses, and get ways of how you can help them out to improve or achieve. Then get involved in the school activities, attend PTA meetings, attend school functions, get in touch with the school where your child is attending. And then encourage positive attitude or be a role model. Even if you didn't go to school, encourage this child. There are these parents who just say, I didn't go to school, am I not leaving? But that's not good. You are planting a negative attitude towards school in your child. So I encourage parents to encourage their children to stay in school, support them. This goes to fathers. They are the ones who have neglected their responsibilities most of the times, and it affects children. Provide where you can and emphasize. You tell these children or pupils that that's what I have managed. Give them hope for better future. Thank you so much. I submit.
Thank you so much for that brilliant submission, Allen Akankunda. That has been perfect. Mr. Aruho, when you listen to the submissions of Mr. Akankunda as regards to teacher training and professional development, she articulates that her teachers need to encourage teachers to go for more seminars, among others. But I'll still ask you the same question, be it that you're a teacher. What initiatives are schools doing, or initiatives that schools must do so as to prepare teachers to adapt to changes in the education system, to help them also help the teachers provide information to these pupils in a better and a more up-to-date system. But then too, I would like you to talk about inclusivity and access. How inclusive is the education system, and what measures should be taken to ensure access to quality education for all pupils, including those in marginalized or remote areas? Mr. Aruho Nicholas, over to you.
I think Madam Allen has said it all about the preparedness of our teachers. For example, the school heads should do is, first of all, to, as Allen said, to encourage teachers to go for those small trainings, even for further studies. If you have a certificate, you go for the diploma. If you have a diploma, you go for a degree. Now you remember that the government insists that all teachers should possess a degree, a bachelor's degree. However, I am concerned with the way how the government is doing, and whether it is also preparing teachers. Has it prepared a well and conducive environment for teachers where they should go and have these further studies? Because most of the teachers are walking the journey alone. For example, on their meager salary, that is where somebody gets money to go for further studies. If this person is on certificate, is trying to get a diploma, and which is really very hard for them. Secondly, there should be some facilities that can, help these teachers to teach. Do these teachers have teaching materials? Do they have textbooks? Do they have all it takes for a people in UPE school? I remember a few years back, it was less than 10,000 per year. So you can imagine if you are paying for a pupil to facilitate his or her learning by 10,000 per year, how do you expect these people to have what? To have better grades, or teachers to perform very well when they don't have facilities? I have talked about the infrastructure. Which type of schools are we seeing where teachers are teaching our children? Some of them are, are in a sorry state. You really pity the teacher that is handling these kids, these children in these classes. The accommodation of teachers who are accommodated at school, they have more time for the kids. But you find that a teacher also walks miles and miles from home to come to school to teach. He reaches at school at 10 and he has to leave a bit early. We have places that are inaccessible, where if it rains when you are at school, it means you have to stay there. If it rains when you're at home, you also have to stay there. So there's a need for much preparation for teachers and even people themselves. They need to be prepared to do better. Then you also asked me about inclusivity, inclusivity and access. I want to assure you that there is no inclusivity at all, because most of the as I said, the environment is not the same. The gap between rural areas and urban areas, it is very wide. People's in schools in urban centers are well facilitated. They can access a number of things. Students can be able to be exposed to the outside world, and which, for example, is examined in these exams. I have seen some schools going for trips, and learning by seeing is also there. So if, for example, a child is goes for a trip in Queen Elizabeth National Park, and in the paper, these our normal questions that normally come, and they say which channel joins Lake Choga and Lake Edward and Lake Choga, and they ask the channel, and this kid passed that channel, crossed the channel going to Queen Elizabeth National Park, he will also remember. He will always remember. So inclusivity, the gap is getting wider and wider, and the facilities are not the same. The facilities are not the same. The environment is not the same. That is why some of the kids in rural areas are completely excluded. And the bad thing is that they are going to be subjected to the same questions. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Aruho. That's true. It's unfortunate that when we come to the grounds of inclusivity, we do not have, or there is a huge disparity in regards to the rural-based and urban-based education facilities. You find that in the rural areas, the facilities are so dilapidated or so old to the extent that even students themselves are not comfortable studying in such an environment. And yet you come to urban centers, the schools look somewhat decent for an education. You know that having a decent facility to provide education at least gives someone motivation to go ahead and read hard. If you have electricity in your classrooms, you can read in the night, but someone in the village doesn't have electricity. How would they read? So yes, it's true that the inclusivity and access, the disparity is so wide. So as we reach towards the end of our conversation, I'd just like to quickly engage with you, Alan. You're a young person, and we are in an age of technological integration, technological advancement. So to what extent is technology integrated into our education system? I think it's actually laughable. In my opinion, I barely see any integration in our education system because, hey, we are still way discussing things that are even not of contemporary contemporary discourse. But nonetheless, the question is fired to you on the aspect of technological integration. To what extent is technology integrated into the education system? And maybe how has it impacted teaching methods? Alan?
For technology, the extent to which it has been integrated in our education system varies, of course, like Mr. Aruho has been discussing the issue of inclusivity. It varies across different regions and institutions. Like most of the districts that are remote, the schools that are remote, it's too hard to integrate this technology use in their system. Of course, if a school does not have access to electricity, where can they access how can they use a computer, or how can they use these smartphones that need charging every now and then? So it's based on infrastructure also, and the socio-economical status of the masses. Yeah, as they were implementing this new curriculum of the lower secondary level, there was a suggestion that these kids, the students in high school should be allowed to carry smartphones, but it came to our notice that most of the parents were not willing to provide smartphones to these kids because they cannot afford buying a smartphone at 400, 500, and then put data. That's too expensive for a homestead that is not well off. So basically, of course, if technology is integrated and used in a proper way, of course, it has a positive impact on the teaching methods. The teachers can access a wide range of educational resources online, a diversity of teaching materials, for example, the whiteboards, the online softwares. This isn't learning and teaching process. Even the evaluation process. Imagine in the traditional school setup, teachers had to do this, have to mark, then integrate all you record the marks of 100 students, you have to do, it's a lot of work and so hectic. So with this technology, I think evaluation and assessment isn't, and of course it has an impact on the engagement. Of course, with these social media, WhatsApp groups, Google, students have a diversity of platforms to research and then interact in terms of work. It even critical skills. Someone who has used the smartphone for research will not be the same person who will not be like the same person who will just rely on the library, that most of the libraries in our schools are not even well stocked. Then its impact on the overall learning outcome. Of course, if this has a positive impact on the teaching methods, the evaluation, the students' engagement, the overall learning outcomes must be positive too. There is improvement in information retention, like these social media platforms come with the audiovisual materials compared to a person who has watched a movie, for example, about the migration of Bantu who has watched a movie will not be like a person who has just written notes from class. So it improves on the information retention and of course problem solving skills. So I also call upon our government and the Ministry of Education that if it's all possible, all schools can access this technology. I call upon parents, if you can afford, of course, not all can afford, let your kid access this smartphone, computer, laptop, and of course, supervise them on how to use them. Let them not use this technology for that it will bring negative outcomes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alan. That has been a very robust and detailed discussion. I'll just get to you, Mr. Aruho, as we reach the end of our conversation. What recommendations do you have? But before you even go to the recommendations, I'd like you to first help us demystify the post-PLE opportunities. How can the education system be better suited to help tailor students or pupils in their career paths? But then you provide us with recommendations that the government needs to employ, the schools need to employ, but also stakeholders need to employ to help better the pupils and students for a brighter future. And then you can maybe conclude, and I'll have Ms. Allen coming in to close the conversation. Over to you, Mr. Aruho.
Thank you, Brick, for this wonderful opportunity. As of post-PLE opportunities, a majority, of course, will go to secondary schools, and there are a number of secondary schools. that can take up these children in whichever grade they came, they passed. They can, as long as they are eligible. You don't need parents. You don't need to struggle. Kindly go to a school which you can afford to pay school fees for your child, and they will come out. You know, there are some humble schools which people ignore, but it is very important. You just take your child there, encourage your child to go and study, and you know, at the end of the day, this child will be a very important person in this country. Then secondly, we have technical schools where these people can go for vocational studies. And the good thing with it, somebody can start at this junior level in a technical school. After 2 years, he joins a technical institute. And also after 2 years, he goes to a technical college. Then also 2 years for a diploma, and even join the university. I have examples of people who started after P7, but now they are holding PhDs. So there is no need to worry. You go and start from there. For example, if a child has always wanted to study engineering, you can pass there. Then the last one, sorry, not the last one as such. Then there are those who need to go for example, non-formal learning. Non-formal learning is, for example, you go to carpentry and you study skills. You get skills on how to make beautiful furniture. There you can also pass there and survive. Then lastly, it is especially those who didn't perform very well, and they think if they repeat, they can, you know, they can better their grades. You can go back and repeat, and you know, and you better your grades. So those are the post-primary opportunities, apart from repeating post-primary opportunities, which our children can handle. Then you talked about you asked me to talk about something else, what can be done. Drake, there are very many policies. There are very many policies that are in place, and unfortunately, especially teachers and stakeholders in education, they don't know them. They have never been sensitized about them, but they are good policies. And these policies are picked from our national constitution. For example, if you talk about some legal frameworks like the Education Act of 2008, when you talk about the Local Government Act of 2019, UNEB Act of 2021, UNCDC Act of 2000, all these policies are good. And if we can internalize them and look at them and find out what they talk about education, we can really better the way we handle our education system in this country. We need to go on the drawing board. If these policies are suggesting for a few reforms, let's go ahead and do them. We shouldn't be a country that has better policies but are implemented elsewhere, as it has always been said. All that said, I want to thank you very much for hosting me this evening, and I want to thank Ellen for this for her input, and thank you, Drake, for hosting us, and the Civic Space. You have been really. This is my third time being here, and I really want to thank you for hosting me. Thank you.
We appreciate you, Mr. Aruho Paul, for taking time to always join us and discuss issues of national importance. From Civic Space TV, Center for Constitutional Governance, to you, we would like to say thank you, and thank you always for honoring our invite to take part to discuss such conversations. Ms. Allen Akankunda, quickly come in and give us your recommendations and concluding remarks so that we can call off the conversation. Allen, over to you.
Thank you so much. So I would like to first recommend the government and all stakeholders to motivate teachers and reward them. If they need these positive academic outcomes, teachers should be paid in time, they should be accommodated well, and they should be given peace of mind. And parents should also stop deciding for their children on what to do, but guide them. Give children a diversity of opportunities and let them decide for themselves. You shouldn't stick on, I want you to be a doctor, I want you to be this. And you may find a person, that kid is not passionate about what you're forcing them to do, and they spend time concentrating on what they cannot manage. They leave what they are passionate at the end, they maybe, unfortunately, they fail both what you're forcing them to do and what they are passionate at. Instead of concentrating on what they like and being guided on how they should achieve what they need in life. And then the Ministry of Education and Sports, I call upon them to modify the primary level curriculum to fit what students are going to meet in the new lower secondary curriculum. The students are going to come from these primary schools, and they meet this the newly implemented curriculum that is practically based. They do not have any idea about it. I really call upon the implementers of this curriculum to extend it to primary level and even to universities, because you see, I'm an education student, but since they implemented this curriculum, most of the universities, if not only, they sticking former curriculum of the universities. And I guess what are we going to teach these children that we've not been taught? So I ministry that, and they do the needful. Then there is need to modify in the assessment tools. Of course, this PLE, like Mr. Aruho has said, it only assesses the knowledge in class, and you find talents of these students are neglected. The skills, the ability of a kid to apply this knowledge in real world is neglected. So there should be a modification in the assessment and evaluation tools that, like Mr. Aruho has said, formative assessment tools should be adopted to fit this assessment, rather than PLE that just comes abrupt, that even if a kid has coped and passed, you will not know. Yeah, I think that's all. I want to appreciate you for hosting us. I appreciate you for giving us platforms to express what we feel should be done. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Alan, for that wonderful submission. It has been brilliant, and I'd like to appreciate you for that. To Mr. Aruho Paul, thank you very much for taking time to join us in this wonderful discussion. It has been a very brilliant and interesting conversation discussing PLE results and education reforms in Uganda. From Center for Constitutional Governance and Civic Space TV, we would like to say thank you for taking time to discuss issues of national importance and always honoring our invitation. Thank you for the brilliant insights you brought forward in tonight's conversation, and would call upon the government and relevant stakeholders to take upon to take upon recommendations rendered by you, Mr. Aruho, and you, Ms. Akankunda Allen, for the betterment of our country and for the betterment of the future of the younger generation, for a sustainable world that would love to see. Otherwise, I've been your moderator. My name is Douglas Onen. This has been the community show. See you next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye. Take care.